AZAMINA, the deck which continued the theme of Konami's attempt to create the multiverse storyline of basic archetypes. By the end of 2024, we were all sick and tired of the Sinful Spoil storyline, not the fault of AZAMINA albeit, but you know,
she planted the seed.
Today we're going to go over one of my new favorite decks to play, pure AZAMINA. We're going to talk about the entire archetype, tech choices, builds, deck profile, and I'll show you some replays. AZAMINA, pure, that is a fusion archetype. The unique thing about AZAMINA specifically is that basically you fuse away spells and traps rather than monsters, which is quite unconventional. And of course, how else do you cheat out the fusion mechanic in 2025? That's right, make everything activate in the graveyard and do stuff. Or just fuse the graveyard. Control the field with the Lady of Sin herself, AZAMINA. Now the fact that I got a royal rare probably doesn't have anything to do with my sudden interest in this deck. Let's begin with Queen AZAMINA. Now I don't think this card is very good just because it's kind of difficult to summon from the hand, and even if you do summon it from the hand by cheating it out or whatever, it just doesn't really do much and the payoff isn't really worth it, and to be honest, using the fusions without her is very possible. AZAMINA Fusion, however, that is her ultimate form. Now while some versions maybe of like White Forest would actually hard fuse into this, the deck I'm playing today, it's best to just think of this more as Chimera Tech Mega Fleet Dragon, with Saint AZAMINA being Cyber Dragon. You contact fuse away any monster your opponent controls plus Saint AZAMINA, and you can summon AZAMINA. You're gonna hear AZAMINA a lot today. She can be destroyed by card effects, and as a continuous effect on resolution, all monsters your opponent controls lose 500 attack for every card activation, and monsters on the field with 0 attack cannot activate their effects. So should you play against an actual sub 500 attack deck, well, it's just Majesty's Fiend. Yeah, that's good card. The main purpose of AZAMINA will be to close out the duels and tribute away opponents' problematic monsters. Problematic monsters is quite a term in Yu-Gi-Oh! Racist Mirror Jade. Saint AZAMINA. Not to be mistaken for the patron saint of England like Saint George the Dragon Slayer, no.
Alright mate, can I get a rolling sausage?
This is the immortalized sinful lady herself, Saint AZAMINA. This will be your go-to boss monster and the way in which you can bring out more powerful AZAMINA fusions. Every good AZAMINA turn will involve Saint AZAMINA. On the turn she's fusioned, she can summon out other powerful fusions, and most importantly, she has one of the most bizarre and unique effects in Yu-Gi-Oh! What do you think a 0 attack boss monster was gonna do? Yeah, of course it's a floodgate. Your opponent cannot target her. Seems normal. Powerful boss monster, untargetable. We've seen this a few times before. But your opponent cannot target their own cards on their own field and in their own grave and banishment. Okay, why do I care about my opponent not being able to target their own cards? Well, you would be surprised at how many decks and combos in Yu-Gi-Oh! Utilize being able to target their own cards. You can't use Requiem to equip Engraver. Luna Light is a deck that constantly retrieves things out of its own grave, and I'm sure you can think of a dozen archetypes that suffer under Saint AZAMINA. But while having this obscure restriction is actually kind of a bonus, the main reason you want Saint AZAMINA is going to be the free special from the extra of any AZAMINA fusion. AZAMINA Risilago reduces your opponent's monsters by 500 attack and defense, which can come up, but most important of all, she can search any AZAMINA or Sinful Spoil card. Risilago is how you bridge between Diabell and AZAMINA. When destroyed, she also adds any Sinful Spoil spell from deck to hand. Important to note, however, is that Risilago only gets her effect on fusion, not specialed off of Saint AZAMINA. Now for those of you shufflers who don't play Master Duel, well, now you know. I've told you now, you're not allowed to do it. AZAMINA Ilia Sylvia is your basic Omni Negate. Say the line, Konami. Quick effect negate. She tributes herself off to negate any card effect. Doesn't destroy, and as a bonus, she doubles AZAMINA battle damage, which can be nice for neat lethal lines, and when destroyed, she'll be able to neat you a Sinful Trap. This is going to be your go-to special summon off of Saint AZAMINA, either this or AZAMINA Mo Regina. Mo Regina, this is definitely just like a Mean Girls reference, right? I know, there's only one person in the world who's had the name Regina. Mo Regina has the ability to bring back any illusion out of your grave for free, which doesn't come up that often because you actually recycle the grave with Hallowed, but it's there. Mo Regina's best effect is in response to a Sinful Spoil or AZAMINA card effect. Kind of like a Paleo. She gets to pop 2 cards on the field. AZAMINA Soul Ersikitha. Azamina Soul Erisic... Azamina Soul Erisic... Azamina Soul... This guy is not an end board piece, but something you're going to fusion into on your opponent's turn, primarily with a different card that we'll talk about later. But when this hits the board, it sends a card on the field to the grave, and in the next standby phase, can retrieve an Azamina or Sinful Spoil from grave to your hand should he survive. Next is Diabell Star Vengeance, the fleshed out final form of Diabell Star with the Azamina corruption, or something. I don't know the lore. She ate the apple, Bible stuff happened, you know how college parties go. One minute you're playing beer pong, the next you're committing the original sin and having the entire universe's creation of or something. Vengeance can quick effect pay half your life points to pop a card, and if you control another Diabell, it also summons a tuner, synchro, illusion, or spellcaster from the extra, furthering synchro plays on the opponent's turn. Vengeance can also be brought back by banishing a trap and spell from the grave, and on top of that, she's always considered a Sinful Spoil card. This is going to be a mandatory part of your end board. Diabells, while not an Azamina, could be played in the deck at 1 copy, as she can Foolish Vengeance to the grave, or more Sinful Spoils, or Curse of Diabell, which gets Philia Diabell, and is another name for Vengeance. You protect your monsters from destruction while she's on the field with another Diabell, so you see how they were kind of thematically designed for each other. Philia Diabell. So this is a normal spell that can be searched off of the Curse of Diabell that you mill. It has the effect where if you don't control any monsters, but your opponent does, you can just simply special Diabells or Diabell Vengeance from the deck. Or you can just add it to your hand, which is another way to get to a Sinful Spoil. Now for the Synchros Vengeance is going to summon, you've got Poplar of the White Forest, which for all intents and purposes of Azamina is just a formula synchron which is level 4 to combine with Vengeance being 8 to go into the level 12 Vengeance Dragon. Vengeance Dragon has the effect to scale a monster your opponent controls, and during the battle phase it can pop that same continuous spell that you just pushed to the back row and a different monster. Now let's move on to the main deck. Let's begin with Deception of the Sinful Spoils. This is a continuous spell that can tribute a monster to search out any Azamina card. In the end phase, if it was sent to the grave that turn, you can reset it to the field, which is great for grinding. Hallowed Azamina. This is polymerization for the deck. You want to search this off of Deception, hard draw it, and it's how you get into St. Azamina and Risialago, the Playmakers. Now, Hallowed is a bit of a weird card because, like we've discussed at the start, you're fusing spells and traps away. So Hallowed sends a Sinful Spoil to summon one of the lower level Azaminas. If you send 2 Sinful Spoils, it summons the higher level Azaminas. So basically, you're going to want to either send 1 Sinful Spoiled spell trap, that could also include Vengeance, to summon Risialago, or 2 to go straight into St. Azamina, which is fine because St. Azamina can summon another fusion anyway. But again, importantly, St. Azamina is not a fusion summon, so don't try and Risialago off of it. And don't go on Reddit and ask why the game's bugged. You're going to be able to pull this off twice in a turn because you can recycle Hallowed Azamina in the grave by shuffling back one of the fusions into the extra deck to get it back to your hand. So ideally, you can like link off Risialago, make an SP, recycle the Risialago with Hallowed, and then Hallowed summon St. Azamina, and she'll get you Ilia Sylvia or Moa Regina. That is your very basic, simple turn 1 play. So getting into the more obscure ones, we've got Azamina Debtors. This is just Hallowed, but a quick play. Most likely going to be used for summoning Ilia Sylvia on your opponent's turn. It also has the grave effect to revive an Azamina from the graveyard, which is basically only really going to be Saint Azamina because any fusions that you make that are properly summoned, like Risialago, are very likely to be shuffled back by Hallow. But it is still good to bring out Saint Azamina because that can get you to Azamina. Azamina Determination. This is again literally just Hallowed Azamina, but it utilizes the grave and banishment instead of your hand and field. This is pretty much like a reverse Miracle Fusion, and so this is how you pay the hefty cost of 2 Sinful Spoils on your opponent's turn after you've depleted some of your resources. So you're likely to shuffle back like Banished Wanted and some other Sinful Spoil from your grave or banishment to bring out another Saint Azamina on your opponent's turn, which can then bring out either one of the other of Ilia Sylvia or Moa Regina. Now the rest of the cards you play here are probably just like one-offs. They're all Sinful Spoils. You all know Wanted, but this is how Risialago gets you the Diabell or vice versa. Subversion is nice removal. Silvera is an Omni-Negate, but it does very specifically require Diabell on the field. Morian is a Book of Moon with the added ability to reset itself. This is one of the best ones you want to play at 2 to 3 copies. Subduel is an E-Telly from the deck, but you can't use the monster effect in the main phase, so you could bring out Vengeance and then pop a card in the standby or battle. The Grave effect is like a weird bounce and reset. It's probably just designed to trigger Moa Regina. I wouldn't play more than one of this. There's Resilia, which is like protection effect after a pop if you can drop your opponent's cards low enough, but again, can be awkward to play because you have to end specifically on Diabell Star for it to work. This is going to be a 0 to 1. Dramatic Chase is a good way to get Vengeance into the rotation, and then you can send it away for something like one of your Hallowed. You could also use this to like scale Diabells or Diabell the Black Witch if you haven't already gotten to them in some way, and then summon them in the end phase to set another card from deck. Guilt of the Sinful Spoils is a compulse, but again, Diabell restrictions make it awkward to squeeze it into AZAMINA. I wouldn't play any of it personally. Sinful Spoils Awakening is compulse 3 if your opponent has 3 monsters, but is less restrictive on the activation requirements since you don't need a Diabell. This is something you could play out 1 copy just to have more sinful names. Sanctification is a discard to revive Diabell or summon a continuous spell trap. Look, this is a really lore-heavy deck at Archetype. Not all of these are going to be that great. I wouldn't play any personally. Susurrus of the Sinful Spoils. It's like Signet Crosswipe. So like you tag out an illusion or spellcaster to bring the same type out of your grave or banishment. It is pretty neat to retrieve and recycle stuff while also dodging targeting cards in the process, but it just being super situational and it not really forwarding your gameplay just feels like it's not really worth playing at all. Sinful Spoils of the White Forest and original Sinful Spoils are cool cards that are maybe not for AZAMINA, and I'm sure you already know what they do already. Today we're focusing on pure AZAMINA, and that's pretty much it for most of the cards you're going to want to play in this deck. Let's get into the deck profile, talk some theory, tech choices, and then do some gameplay. Here's the deck profile, and just to give you a very basic sort of something to work with, this is what I've been playing. There's so much room for experimentation and shifting things around. I've seen 60 card versions of this, a whole bunch of different things you can play, but the main sort of idea is that you're playing a low monster count, pretty much just Diabell and the 2 Diabells, pretty much just all Diabell. And then from there, you're basically just fitting in like techs around the sort of card, first of all, the card count you want to play, and I guess maybe kind of based on the meta, sort of. Well, I suppose we could just start with the engine pieces. This is almost always going to be a 3 of, you always want to play Vengeance. You probably do want to play Diabells. I've been liking it personally. The 3 Hallowed, I think, is really good to just hard draw, as well as all of the Sinful Spoil cards. It's a shame that AZAMINA Debtors isn't a Sinful Spoil card, but it is a good card to just set because you want to get off your fusions and stuff on your turn, set up the Saint AZAMINA, and then you want to try and make another Saint AZAMINA on your opponent's turn to then get the other respective fusion out. Then you have all of the like best quote-unquote Sinful Spoil cards. You know, you got Deception, Morion, Silvera. Subversion could even be bumped up as well. If you want to play 60 cards, you have more room for tech cards and stuff as well. You can play Grass. You can even play Left Arm Offering if you really want to. But you sort of like understand like the philosophy of this deck. It's like low monster count, reasoning, mill your entire graveyard, trigger a bunch of grave effects, use their grave effects to do stuff. Let's talk about like some tech stuff. You probably maybe want to try Sinful. I wish. Super Poly at some point. Obviously just a really crazy good card, right? And it's a spell. You know, you can discard sinful cards into the graveyard, which is usually fine if you don't need them to fuse, because the extra deck is extremely loose. I mean, we're playing like Psychic End, Duration, Crisis, a double Ursicteron, like that. That's just not necessary. You maybe want to play a second AZAMINA. This is kind of an expensive deck just because of the 3 holo. If you didn't already have just 1 copy from generically playing Snake Eye versions or something in the past, you might still have 1 left over. So it is a heavy investment if you're just trying to play a for fun deck. But other than that, like, I guess it's like somewhat cheap. Yeah, if you just don't want to play like the second AZAMINA. Impulse is kind of like a choice, I suppose. You don't really need to use Diabells. It can be a bit of a clash, but ultimately, like, the most important thing is your dart monsters. So Impulse can work quite nicely, just because you can't play hand traps if you want to focus on reasoning. And maybe there's other interpretations of AZAMINA, maybe there's other ways to play it, but obviously it feels really bad to not be able to play Charmies and Maxi, but that would just obviously completely clash with reasoning. So yeah, lots of different approaches for the deck. In 60 cards, you could even play maybe like 1 copy of Snow. You don't really want to banish these cards, but in 60 cards, maybe you could, along with the Grass, the Left Arms, just generic like utility and stuff like that could be pretty good for the deck. So there's just a very basic list. It's one of those things where you just have to experiment and play with yourself and see what you like and what you dislike. Lava Golems have been fine. You don't need your normal summon.
You could even play Sphere Mode. I don't think that gets... I'm pretty sure that gets skipped over Reasoning, so that's probably okay. That's why Lava Golem is good, because it can't be... It says must first be special summoned. So when you Reasoning, it skips over the Lava Golem, it keeps going, so that's why it doesn't clash. But yeah, just a really simple basic deck list. Let's hop into some games and see what this deck can do.
So for context, this is low diamond on day 1 of the season. So all of these players should be master. So their plays are not going to be completely unhinged, just in terms of the quality. This is a good showcase of, like, theoretically what you're trying to do with this deck, and I wanted to show this replay specifically because I opened Reasoning. Reasoning is a big part of the deck, that's why we play Thrust. So you just want to get all of these, like, Sinful Spells into the graveyard, trigger a bunch of stuff. Against Reasoning, people call 1 because Infernoid, I suppose, so you're usually safe from that. 7 is more of an obscure number, which is most statistically what you're likely to hit. This deck only has like 4 monsters, plus a Lava Golems, which obviously Reasoning skips over. So this is a card that I'm playing. I think I've since cut it. It's absolutely awful. I think it's only very good with Diabells, and even then, I don't know, very good is an overstatement. For context as well, I played this deck for a day. That's it. I just spent one evening grinding ladder to get some of these duels here, so I'm absolutely nowhere near as good as I could be with this, which I think is really cool to show in terms of the potential of what the deck can be once I actually get really competent with it. So I think what you're supposed to do here is send a fusion. I think that's the logic with play of the Diabells, that it sends a fusion, then you could recycle it for free, essentially, for hallowed, and then you keep your fusion on the field instead of having to link it off. So I use it to just dump, like, Vengeance or something. I banished 3 for the play of the Diabell to bring back the Diabell Star Vengeance, because you can only summon it from the graveyard with its effect once per turn. So I want to save that effect as an end board piece, just so I have an extra Sinful Spoil to make up for the AZAMINA requirements, which I'm going to go into eventually. I do get hit with Effect Veiler, which is a bit rough. So that's not too big of a deal because we have the Thrust, and of course the Hollow can recycle itself. So I just get the Reselia into the graveyard because it's free material because of Hollow. Rather than using Hollow immediately and bouncing off the field, it's better to bounce it from the grave, so you just get like a free SP body out of it. So with the SP load, like banish the opponent's Veiler in case they're on some like Bestials or something. So I go the Reselia, go for the Hola AZAMINA. And we want to go, of course, for Saint AZAMINA, the heart and soul of the deck. Very important card. So we thrust for a Sinful Spoil, just so we can send both of them off of the field here to make up the level requirement. That's how you summon Saint AZAMINA, is with the level 8 or 2 spells. You're fusion summoning with spells. Basically, you need 2 spells to summon Saint AZAMINA. Saint AZAMINA on the turn can just summon out a guy from the extra deck. So we're just going to summon Mo Regina. Mo Regina is sort of like the main disruption in the deck. You can go for Ilia Sylvia for an Omni Negate. Regina pops 2 cards in response to a Sinful card. So this is sort of just like depending on the matchup, what you want, what's good. Ilia Sylvia is obviously an Omni Negate, which is very strong, but it doesn't remove the cards from the field. Again, it's completely matchup dependent. My opponent goes normal summon Barrow. SP's value is almost always just going to get something off of Barrow. Just removing the normal summon is very good. What you'll notice is in a lot of the replays, you'll find that Saint AZAMINA is like a very obnoxious card. Saint AZAMINA says, you know, you can't target your own cards. You don't think about this often, but there's a lot of cards that a lot of archetypes play where they target their own cards to do things. You'll see in some of the replays coming up here, that's actually like a relevant part of like the Floodgate-esque style effect of Saint AZAMINA, and it hurts some decks more than others. So a lot of people kind of play into that. So my opponent's kind of doing some Blue Eye stuff, and then from here, my main disruption comes out, which is going to be to use the Morion. Morion is a Book of Moon, basically. It's just Book of Moon. It can set itself for free from the graveyard, which is why Reasoning is really nice in this deck, because it just sets itself for free when you control like any of your big boss monsters. We're going to Book of Moon the Maiden, because we can't target the Blue Eyes. Book of the Maiden, Chainlink 1, because Mo Regina can only respond to a Sinful Spell. She's like a Paleo. We're going to chain the Mo Regina to pop 2 cards on the field. We're going to hit both back row. One of them is going to be True Light. You know what happens when you pop True Light as a Blue Eyes player. From there, we can go into Vengeance Dragon with the quick synchro of the Poplar. Diabell Vengeance gets to summon out the Poplar because we control Diabells. So you just have an extra disruption getting to go into Snake Eye Vengeance when you have Diabells on the field alongside Vengeance. This is a basic, simple showcase of what this deck is supposed to do going first in an ideal world. Don't worry, we'll get into losses and going second soon. Here's another replay for going first. Discarding a card for the Diabell Star. Diabell Star is going to get a search here. For the Deception, we're going to activate Deception, tribute a monster, tribute the Lava Golem, or the Diabell Star. Nice to keep the Diabell Star on the field whenever possible, just so you can get the bonus effects of some of the cards that require multiple Diabells. We get Drolled, which is usually quite bad, but as long as you get to, like, Hollow, as, like, ideally your first search, then it's fine.
The tactics in this situation is pretty bad. They had like 2 Millennium pieces, a Mitsu Mirror, and Ankh, I think. But just get rid of Sengenjin, I think it was. Just hopefully that's the best one. We're gonna go and send 2 Sinful Spoils here for the Saint AZAMINA. And from here, it's like, okay, what's good to hit? Do we hit the, do we go for Ilia Sylvia for an Omni Negate? Or do we go for more Regina the pop cards? I haven't played like Exodia Pure before. But I know that there's like some protection effects, so just in case I decide to go for Ilia Sylvia, that way I can just kind of negate Ankh, rather than having to worry about some cards being protected from destruction. Obviously, that's weak to the fact that my opponent can just run over my board. I think that's fine, though, because it means I survive, and all of the fusions have these like bonus effects, which is, you know, crazy good. So I get to search a Sinful Spoil card, and I know it's only a trap card. But just having a Sinful Spoil name is really important in this deck because that's what fuels your Hallowed AZAMINA fusion. So it's just like fusion material, basically. They have Thrust, which is a little bit rough because they go for Fires of Rage. And then they also get Obliterate on top of that. So that's a bit rough. They're able to sort of fight back a little bit here. In standby phase, they try and use the Fires of Rage just to pop all my cards. There's a lot of Sinful Spoil cards, and some of them are just really random. This one is Subdual. This one you can banish from your graveyard and it bounces your set card. And then you can set another card. It's very randomly, like, not very good. I mean, I don't know what situation you would use in it. I guess this one specifically. In this situation, it can bounce my Deception. Then I can keep that for, you know, sending as a Sinful Spoil card. So I use the Subdual to bounce the Deception. And he actually negates it for the spell and trap negate of Exodia Incarnate instead of Hollow. So I'm just like, we take those. We take those. From here, I can use the Hollow in the graveyard. That's going to recycle these Ilia Sylvia. Add it back to my hand. I have 2 Sinful Spoil traps. I can just yeet them away from my hand here. Summon out the Saint AZAMINA. Saint AZAMINA can then summon out the Mo Regina. Then my opponent goes for Obliterate. So Obliterate is a continuous spell. So it needs to be staying face up on the field in order to resolve, which means that I can chain my Sinful Spoil Morion in the graveyard. The effect of Morion in the graveyard just lets you set it from the graveyard. That's it. But because of the trap card, it's a quick effect, which means I can chain to this, which then allows me to respond with more Regina in response to my own chain as long as my opponent doesn't chain something. So because I can chain the Morion, I use the Regina, then the Regina pops the Obliterate, and the Obliterate won't resolve because it's no longer face up since it's a continuous trap. And then I can pop his 2 cards here, reset the Morion, and then I go into AZAMINA herself. So AZAMINA is just a kaiju. It's just a contact fusion commit wealth. Kaiju, how would you best describe it? It's like Cyber Dragon Mega Fleet with Saint AZAMINA. So it's really good on turn 2, because having a 4,000 defender with 0 attack is kind of useless unless your opponent has a big attack guy, because you can reflect damage with AZAMINA. Queen AZAMINA, or Saint AZAMINA rather. This one you just contact fuse. Now, unfortunately, you can't bring it back with Mo Regina, because I believe it's not like properly fusion summoned. But yeah, it's a 4,000 beater. It's indestructible, and it's 4,000, you know, and it's very easy to make, and it's removal. The next up, we got a almost brick. And we just hard drew Hallowed, which we play 3 of. It's fine because we play so many Sinful Spells, so you're going to draw 1 eventually. Racielago will get you into Engine. So as long as you can do that, then that's fine. Luckily for us, it's not exactly infinite impermanence. That would have been pretty disastrous. We go Tactics and we draw 2 cards, and probably drawing the 2 best draws we could have fucking asked for, honestly. Reasoning, I kind of misplayed here. I probably should have chained the Wanted and just deck thinned. So I did actually get a lot of value off the Reasoning. They actually called 7, which was, you know, interesting. Fair enough. I mean, that probably was the correct number. It's either 7 or 8, maybe. So we go for the Diabell Star off of that Wanted that we drew. We tribute off the monster in our hands here. We're going to get AZAMINA Determination. So this is an interesting one. This is just like an AZAMINA fusion, but it's for the graveyard. So it's Miracle. It's like reverse Miracle Fusion. It puts back Banish and Grave cards, shuffling them back into the deck. So you know how you banish cards to fusion summon sometimes? With, I think it's Debtors or something. There's like another one that banishes Sinful Spoils. Or just banishing cards in general with Vengeance. Determination can then recycle them all, put them back in the deck, and then resummon. And then, of course, Hallowed has that Grave effect to recycle the fusions. So this deck has theoretically infinite grind game. You can kind of just keep playing forever with this deck. So that's obviously really good in, you know, into the grind games. We're going here for the sort of similar setup as before, with the Vengeance, the Saint AZAMINA, the Regina, the SP Little Knight. Put a card back with the Wanted, draw. We go Snake Eye Chase in the end phase.
place the Diabell. We don't summon it immediately just because it's already used the effects. We can use it on the opponent's turn instead, just to get, you know, a Sinful Spoil set on the opponent's turn. And then from here in the standby phase, I'm going to immediately Determination just to get Ilia Sylvia up for an Omni Negate. So essentially just fully inting into Super Poly, but, you know, that card doesn't exist. It's fine. So we recycle Wanted that's banished, put it back into the deck here, and we go for Ilia Sylvia. Our opponent goes into a Special Summon Fenrir! That's terrifying. Kind of weird misplay, though. Maybe they were trying to play around Droll, I think is what they were logically thinking here. So put Fenrir, maybe, I don't know. Summon Fenrir, chain, and then use Engraver, so I just chain SP. I think that's the best case use of SP. I feel like there was some sort of, like, playing around Droll stuff that they were trying to do, maybe. I feel like they should have just maybe just attacked with Fenrir. If other thing happened, other thing would have happened, so who really knows. Now, this is what I meant about the Saint AZAMINA Floodgate effect. Just like random cards that you don't really think about, like, can't be used here. So what he should be trying to do is using Engraver to bait out Ilia Sylvia by equipping the Requiem. But you can't equip Requiem because Requiem targets your Engraver. And Saint AZAMINA prevents that. He summons Lacrima, and Lacrima can't use the effect because it targets. So he's kind of just like fumbling like to these like Saint AZAMINA Floodgate effects, and it's just really funny to watch because it's just, again, like these cards that you play so often that you don't think about that much, where you're floodgated under not being able to target your own cards. Normally, boss monsters say they can't be targeted, but Saint AZAMINA says you cannot target your own cards. And that just makes people flustered and fall over sometimes. Alright, so I promised the loss here. Our opponent is playing Habakiri Babakiri, so yeah, let's just skip ahead and see where this goes. Alright, so my opponent's playing Mitsurugi Fiendsmith Voiceless. An absolute pile. At some point, he used the Fiendsmith cards to go into Saryuja to deep draw into the Voiceless engine so that he can interconnect and actually end on everything. So what do we have here? Fully untargetable board, Hand Rip, Raigeki with the Prayers, the Omni Negate, the Solemn Warning floating into some other guy that also does something broken. Again, just for context, I had this, I think this may have been my like 6th game with the deck. So still getting used to it. So let's see how this one goes. We're going to go and activate Hallowed AZAMINA. We're just going to go for Risialago and hoping that this just kind of baits something. Risialago, if it's destroyed, it gets a search. So I think we're kind of happy with that. Activate the effect of Risialago to get a search here. Unfortunately, it's an Ash, so I love when they full combo you and also have hand traps. That's my favorite part of going first. Anyway, so that's just unfortunate. We're going to go AZAMINA Debtor, so this is like another type of fusion spell. He activates Murakumo to force me to discard a card in order to resolve it, which I'm happy to do because I drew Curse of Diabell. So I send a Sinful Spell card, I send Resilia to summon Ilia Sylvia, and then on the new chain, the Curse of Diabell can then add Philia Diabell, which is going to get me Vengeance. Now, again, so this is what I'm trying to, like, think about here. If you're any voiceless Fiendsmith Mitsurugi experts in the chat, let me know if I could have done something better here. I decided to go to the battle phase, so I can't attack over low, but I figured, like, forcing out Prayers and then negating with Sylvia was maybe a good line here. So I go and attack over the Murakumo just because the attack reduction, by the way, is massive. 500 attack reduction for Risialago. You wouldn't think Risialago was good that way. So I negate the Prayers here. And I'm just wondering if, like, that was probably just, like, wrong anyway. Because I negate Prayers. The Murakumo still just, like, triggers to bring back and pop. Which I'm thinking, okay, maybe that's not that bad because Resilia gets a search anyway. But maybe I really did want to attack over it instead of losing it completely. But I think it's fine that it sort of empties my whole board here because now I can use the Philia Diabell bonus effect. I chain Sinful Spoil's Awakening here. It's just a trap card that quick, like Morian can set itself if you control an illusion. So just before I lose my illusion monster, I'm going to set it to the field here just so I have another Sinful Spoil. There goes the Risialago. Risialago's then going to activate the effect to get a search here. Unfortunately, it's just going to be negated by Skull Guardian. From here, go to main phase 2. Hallowed AZAMINA, recycle the Ilia Sylvia. I get the fusion back anyway. Activate the Philia Diabell now. I can use the bonus effect. So Philia Diabell just adds Vengeance or Diabells from deck to hand. But if only your opponent controls monsters, it's just E-Telly. So it's a nice little like go second bonus, like Ketu, for example. We're going to summon Vengeance here. I put it into the Saryuja zone. So this is like where one of these decision points matter. It's like, what should I have popped here? So I think light fairies are untargetable, or light monsters in general are untargetable. So it's either pop Murakumo, who feels a bit redundant to pop at this point because he's kind of already done his job. So I'm like, okay, let's pop the barrier to make everything targetable, and then I'll try and deal with the rest of the board after I get rid of the barrier. So I decided to go to pop the barrier here. Then I activate Deception. Deception now, I tribute off the Diabell Star. Diabell Star is then going to get me Determination, which means I can fuse on his turn. I bring back Diabell Star now. And then that gives me a second fusion, basically. Or a second Sinful Spoils to be able to send here. Now I'm going to activate the Hollow. And in the hindsight, like, maybe I just shouldn't have sent the Diabell. Maybe I should have kept that on the field and just sent the Trap instead. But I'm wondering, like, maybe it's good to use Awakening, because Awakening is actually pretty broken if you can stick a body. 3 or more monsters you control level 5 or higher illusion, you can just bounce 3 cards. Now, the problem, obviously, is that I have to wait till my opponent's turn. They can just negate it with Skull Guardian when he's live again. So it's kind of hard to navigate through all of this. I send both for Saint AZAMINA. Saint AZAMINA then activates the effect to summon Ilia Sylvia. I think this was wrong. I probably just should have summoned Moa Regina, but I'm not sure if I actually have a way to trigger Moa Regina, which is maybe why I could have potentially kept the Vengeance in the graveyard, send the Trap instead. Then if Moa Regina was on the field right now, I would be able to then use Vengeance to summon back, chain the Moa Regina, and then pop the Guardian and the Sorovis. So from here, I use AZAMINA. I link off the Skull Guardian, and I summon AZAMINA with Saint AZAMINA. The summon gets negated and banished despite the fact he loses his Skull Guardian. Then I go into Typhon here, and at this point, I just fall apart. You know, I summon it to the Yugioh zone, boosting the Typhon over the 3,000 threshold, which is extremely embarrassing. I know, whoopsie. So now I can't bounce anything because my Typhon is floodgating himself. I've kind of just wasted the Awakening. I definitely should have tributed off the Awakening instead of the Vengeance, so this is just not going to do anything now. And then in the process, he just gets to bring back Skull Guardian very quickly in the next turn, so definitely falling apart here. The old man Sorovis just ritual summons into the Skull Guardian in the end phase anyway. So yeah. But I wanted to showcase this anyway, because despite how many crazy interruptions and protections my opponent had, I think if I sequenced this properly, there was a world where I could maybe win this game, and that's without any non-engine. This was just purely Sinful Spoil cards and AZAMINA cards. But let me know in the comment section down below how I could have maybe sequenced this better. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that has been the story of Farfa's adventure with AZAMINA. It's really random. If you saw the deck that I uploaded a couple of days ago or weeks ago, maybe it depends. I don't know when I'm going to actually get this one done. You may have noticed in the duel room when the new pack came out, there was just this AZAMINA pile. It was literally just like 2 monsters and like 40 spells and traps. And I was so shocked at how much this deck can do just with like spells and traps and reasoning and Sinful Spoils. But I really had a great time with this deck. Let me know what your thoughts are on AZAMINA. If you've watched this far to the end, then just know that I've been putting a lot of effort into this December with all of the content and stuff. So please consider becoming a channel member. Support me in the future endeavors and stuff. I'll see you guys around. Bye bye.